What's up everyone, MK Tom Brady here. In this video, I want to talk about what is balance? Like, what is balance really? We hear the term thrown around all the time, and how important is it? Spoiler, it's important to some degree. We'll get to that in a second. Before I do that, I want to talk about something very quickly that's going to segue into the topic here. I did a video yesterday about Shiva, and I could have chosen my words a lot better. The title of the video is Shiva Finally Breaks Mortal Kombat 11. Now, if you watch the video, while I did not specifically say Shiva was broken and that Shiva should in fact be nerfed, people believe that I am implying this. I could have chosen my words a little better. Shiva, in my opinion, is fine. She is not broken, and she should not be nerfed. So, what did I actually mean by breaks MK11? What I mean is she exposes the broken aspect of the game. For one, let me just segue into the topic we're going to by saying this. While I don't consider Shiva broken, Mortal Kombat 11 uses a custom variation system. It's pretty much, it's cutting edge in my opinion. No game right now does this, and it's basically create a character, and they found a way to take this concept and put it into actual competitive tournament play for money. I would not be surprised to see another title try something like this in the future as well. This is a cutting edge way to play. However, when you have custom variation and you start banning moves, you set a set of rules. For example, if I go to choose Fujin here, and I go to select Jetstream, the game says bad news. This move it's too strong. It's broke. It's disabled in competitive play. If I go to Scarlet and I go to equip her Killer Clot, game says bad news. This move isn't fair. Players file moves that are being told to them is unfair under the category of broke. One blanket kind of statement that these moves get filed under. Go to select Rain. Wave Dash. This move is unfair. It's broken, right? That's what people would say. Broke. You see, whether I believe this stomp is broken or not is irrelevant. Even though I don't believe it's broken, the game, the developer is telling you anything because, and this is where we're going to segue to, this is a big thing to remember. They're telling you, here are the rules, boys. Anything as powerful or more powerful than these moves is unfair and subsequently should be removed from competitive play. So when players see this, they say, hey, NetherRealm, you're telling me the rules. I'm going by your rules. If this is broke and that is broke and that is broke, then the stomp is broke. Then the leap is broke. And this is broke, and that is broke, and so on and so forth. I mean, we hear all the time, Mortal Kombat 11 is the most balanced game ever. And I've always felt this way. I've always said this. Balanced. Balance, balance, balance. The word balance is associated with Mortal Kombat 11. Goes, you know, it's the most balanced NRS game of all time. Most balanced Mortal Kombat game of all time. Since 92, there's never been a more balanced Mortal Kombat game. Balance, balance, balance. And yet, broke is associated with a lot of things in the game just as much as the word balance, which is so confusing to me. How can a game be so balanced and this is broke, that is broke, that is broke, that is broke? And this is why. NetherRealm set the ground rules for what is unfit and unfair competitive play. And as such, whether I believe moves like Shiva Stomp is broken, which I do not, is irrelevant. By the very rules that NetherRealm has set forth, this move and other moves as powerful are broken. Not by my standards, by the standards of the very developer itself who made the game. Now on to rules, we're going on to balance. What is actual balance? Well, obviously balance is important, but how balance is achieved is more important than balance itself. This is where Mortal Kombat 11 fails. Rules rules create balance. Take sports, for example. Games are very similar to sports in that the very balance of the game comes in the rules of the game. You hear any athlete talk, what they always say is, however you officiate the game for them, I want you to officiate the game for me. Consistency is what balance is. That really is balance. Consistency. Because balance is different from game to game because the power level is different from game to game. And balance obviously is relative to the power level, but rules and consistency within those rules is what balance actually is. Like again, in sports, don't let this guy get away with XYZ, but I can't do it, right? All athletes always say is, all I want within the rules, within the calls of the game is consistency. Call the game the same way for both sides. If this is going to be allowed, it should be allowed for both sides, both teams, both parties. That's what you hear. And of course, the individual ability of the athlete, of the fighter, whatever, is where I guess you could get some imbalance. They're just better than you. But the balance is within the rules itself and the consistency of which you would hope the rules are enforced, even though oftentimes in sports, football, basketball, etc., we do see some subjectivity. But in theory, the very letter of the rules and the way they're meant to be enforced, you want consistency. Fighting games are very similar. The rules that govern each character, you want those rules of balance to be equal. From that character to this character, from this character to that character. Don't let this character get away with something that you're telling me is too broken for that character. Now, the imbalance would be in the ability of the players. But that's not imbalance. That's where the skill factor is. Same as sports. That's the skill. The ability is the skill. The rules in which the game is governed that is the balance factor. Mortal Kombat 11's rules are very uniform. They do this to say, we're going to give you balance through uniformity. We're going to take the meter system, right? Everyone builds meter exactly the same way. It's passive meter regeneration. And this was done because, hey, some characters may build meter better than others. Sure, there's complexity in meter building. Not every character builds it as fast or the same or as consistently as others. So while there's a lot of depth in this system, there is also perceived imbalance. NetherRealm says, we're going to make it uniform. Everybody builds meter the exact same rate, at the exact same time. This basically says you all have equal access to your offensive moves, your defensive moves. This means breakaway becomes fair. Like when you had breaker in previous Mortal Kombat games, some characters just got more breakers than you. Now, in theory, everyone gets breakaway the exact amount of times. Everyone gets enhanced moves the exact amount of times. Now, this can vary based on how you use your meter for different things. But in theory, you all have equal amount of chances to use your resources the exact same amount. So, of course, this is a rule that they set. It's kind of bland. It makes very uniform style of play, but it's there for balance. And it governs moves like your breakaway, enhanced, amplified moves, etc. And there's the wake-up system, right? We all know the wake-up system, it is what it is, but it's very bland and uniform. Everyone gets up the same. Long delay, short delay, forward roll, back roll, up 3, up 2. Everyone has their universal up 3, their up 2 that beats jumping, because you have to avoid up 3 by jumping, or if you want to back away, you can, but it beats jumping, it beats throws. So everyone has, in theory, the same way to get up so that everybody can get up equally, right? That's pretty much the way it's done. And it's very uniform and very bland. Not everyone has you have all these special moves, but you can't use them. It's just very universal, up 3, up 2, forward roll, back roll, etc. But even though it's bland and uniform, once again, it's done to create balance, to make sure every character has the same chance to get up as every other character. So even though it's uniform, it is there for balance purposes. So we see this across the game. Even fatal blows, right? Fatal blows, every character gets them at the exact same percentage of life, which is standard in just about every fighting game. They do the same amount when just done raw. They all do right around the same amount, within 1 or 2% of each other, but they're all very similar in the amount. They all have the same amount of armor. They all come back after X amount of time. So say you miss your fatal blow or it's blocked, they all come back within the exact same amount of time, etc. So all this is done, again, fair. It's very universal. Like a lot of stuff in the game is universal. It's done uniform. Even like I said, when it comes things to like meter or even wake up system that usually you find more individual when it comes to fighting games, they just kind of put a just blanket over all this stuff and say it's the same for everybody. And we are fed these bland ways, these bland things of the game because, well, it's done for balance, right? The problem is all these rules are put on top of a foundation. All these uniform rules are piled on top of a foundation that is not uniform, which is, again, the way the characters are built. And something like Shiva Stomp calls attention to why the entire system breaks, because if one set of rules is not consistent, if one system fails, they all fail. For example, you have moves, going back to banned moves, for example, that are default, as in Shiva Stomp, right? Or even just a one slot ability. So default or one slot are the two possible cheapest resources. No skill slots in the Stomp is default, or you can go one skill slot for Jackie's Bionic Bounce. So you see it's only one slot. So either 0 to at most one skill slot here, one slot point, one attribute. And this is considered to be like, these are some of the most powerful moves in the game. Yet these moves that cost little to no skill slots are 1,000 times better than moves that are considered to be not even suitable for competitive play. Then you have other moves that are such as Raiden's Joe Push here. This move is absolutely awful. It is absolutely awful. It's 2 slots. You say, hey, this move is a launcher. Okay, it's a launcher. Then we'll go to Katana's Edenian Fade. This move is absolutely garbage, and it is 2 slots. So you have moves that are not allowed, that are not as good as moves that are 0 to the lowest possible resource cost as far as moves being slotted. And you have the worst moves in the game being maximum 2 to 3 slots. Whereas the best moves are free to, they're just there. Off the bat, the system is already crumbling. Then you have things such as, again, Shiva Stomp. It's a default move. It's got all the perks of everything. You can delay it. It's got a crushing blow attached to it. You can delay it multiple ways. All these things are done by default, by equipping it. The same thing I brought up in a previous video with Cetrion. Her Hell's Wrath default move, she can do it grounded or midair. She can do her teleport, which is a one slot to equip here. She can do this grounded or midair. She doesn't have to equip a different version, a midair and a grounded version of this. Earthquake, she gets to cancel. She doesn't have to equip the ability to cancel. And we have situations like Raiden here. So Raiden's got something that can be seen as kind of similar here. He's got this move here, Electric Current. And it can also launch when amplified. However, you don't get the launching aspect of this unless you also have the quick charge equipped. So you have to then take 2 move slots, 2 of your 3, just to equip one aspect of the move. And then we have situations like Katana, whereas it's like Cetrion, Hell's Wrath can be done, air or grounded, Stomp can be done, multiple things from the one move, from the Stomp, whether it's delay, not delay, how many versions of the delay, and the amplify with the crushing blow. Katana has her air air equivalent to this move here called Ground War. She can do this in the air already by default. But she cannot do it on the ground by default. She must actually equip the ability to do this by default, right? She must equip it. Not by default, but she has it by default. People will say, "Oh, it's her armor break. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be a default move." It's already an armor break by default move, right? In the air. So, and the ground version is not just for armor breaking either, right? So, characters like this, if you apply the rules across the board, she should, have this by default. If you want to say you shouldn't have armor break by default, then Scorpion shouldn't have back 3 by default. Sub-Zero shouldn't have forward 4 by default. Ground rules are what's very, very important to be enforced here. And even if somebody says, well, these moves are launchers from Raiden, right? To equip both slots is to make this move a launcher. Okay, fair enough, to make it a launcher. But there are launchers in this game. For example, Gearus' launcher. This is a launcher. It's only a 1-slot move. Raiden also has a launcher that's far better than the 2 slots it takes to be a launcher. Storm Cell, and this is only 1 slot. So again, there's no consistency within the rules of the game as far as how the characters themselves are built. And Melina is also another great example of this. I used Melina in a previous video where these characters by default or for only 1 slot get to do a bunch of stuff. Melina has got to take multiple slots. She has low psi, air psi. To equip these both takes 2 slots. And then if you want air teledrop, that's all your moves right there. Now, obviously, you don't do this because you want to equip other moves. But if they applied their universal system that they use in other aspects of the game to right here, if they apply the rules fairly, look at Melina. While she wouldn't be the best, or probably even top 5, if by default she had regular psi, low psi, air psi, and air telekick, all by default, well, she would be a hell of a lot better than she is right now. Even characters like Kung Lao, right? Now, people would say this is broken, right? Kung Lao is broke if you gave him air teleport by default, right? But he wouldn't be, quote-unquote, broke, and this wouldn't even be broke, by the way. This still wouldn't be broken, but people would say it's broke because it's kind of like, hey, why does he get that and I don't get this? It's kind of like that logic when you go around here. If you applied this across the board and everyone got these things by default, well, obviously they would have to put some new moves in the game because you're removing certain moves and making them default. But those characters would instantly jump up. All except for probably Shao Kahn, unfortunately, because that character is in need of an overhaul for obvious reasons. The game itself, the uniformity that this game is built on to achieve balance, is completely broken by the way characters are built. Slotting, power level of moves being allowed or not allowed, moves that are default here, but you got to spend 3 slots to do the exact same thing this character does for no slots. It's all out of whack. And balance is consistency. How balance is achieved. Consistency within the rules of the game. If one of these systems fails, they all fail. Mortal Kombat 11 is simply balanced and simultaneously horribly unbalanced at the same time. It does not obey its own rules. It's a game that's bland because, hey, we're going to be balanced based on uniformity. And then they take that very same rule and throw it out the window when the characters are built. And that's pretty much why I feel like while balance is important, how balance is done is also important. Rules. Consistency within those rules. That is balance. Players can accept that type of balance. Why do people cry? They cry when they say, hey, why does he do that? Why is this fair for him but not for me? That's why they complain. Now, obviously, people also complain because anything that beats me is broken. Some people have that logic. But overall, balance is consistency. Consistency within the rules of which the game is governed. And when you don't have consistency, you don't have real balance. And when you go through all these uniform things within the rules that makes the game super bland to achieve balance, and then don't apply those same rules here, the same rules which make the game uniform and kind of bland in other areas, if they applied it here to how the characters are built, would make the game super exciting and super fun and give depth where the other things such as passive meter regeneration universally take. Depth would be given here. But overall, this is how I feel. Going forward, I'm not going to really talk about variations anymore, etc., etc. I just wanted to clarify all of this because really, Shiva just, I think I came off wrong in the video. I think I came off like I was saying Shiva herself is broken, and that's not what I meant. Don't think she's broken, but by the rules of the game, you could make an argument for it. But I personally don't believe she's broken. I don't think anything should really be nerfed, but I do think they should really take a look at how characters are built and how they assign skills, what's default, what's not. They have to just overhaul the whole thing. Are they going to do it? Only time will tell. But I think I've pretty much shed enough light on all this long enough, and we're pretty much done covering this stuff. If they patch the game or do like an overhaul or something, I guess we can go back and revisit it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you guys think it's kind of funny how you always hear Mortal Kombat 11 is balance this, balance that, but at the same time as it's the most balanced, greatest creation ever, you also hear the word broke, broke, broke? Isn't that kind of ironic, kind of odd? Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thanks so much for all the support, and stay tuned for more content.